Your company's Codenomicon safeguard was used to test OpenSSL and led to the discovery of Heartbleed in April this year. Can you tell us how your company works with discovering bugs and vulnerabilities and the afterwork that hopefully lead to fixing these bugs?
Well, Codenomicon develops technology that is used to discover these kind of zero-day vulnerabilities in softwares. So Heartbleed was just one, yet another bug, you could say. It was nothing new in a sense that we see these kind of things almost weekly in our own development processes. We are not actively searching for vulnerabilities in any components or softwares. We are actively developing the technology that helps in that. And what our customers are doing, who use the technology, they are using the technology to actually find those bugs before they release the product. So I could say that Codenomicon has a significant role in making internet safer for us all, and definitely mitigating these vulnerabilities before they are actually released into the public.
It has now been 6 months since the discovery of Heartbleed bug. What is, in your opinion, the most important lesson learned from the security bug?
The most important lesson learned from Heartbleed, I guess it's the awareness. There's bugs in everywhere, and societies are so dependent on software today that if there's a bug in software, it's usually a bad thing for consumers, for citizens, critical infrastructure. So I think the best result that was from the Heartbleed was the awareness that it raised for the security thinking.
Is it possible to avoid bugs like Heartbleed in the future?
It's impossible to 100% avoid it, but it's definitely possible to implement less of those kind of bugs if the developers of this kind of tech software would be using the right kind of technology to test their implementations. And I think that one of the bigger things here is that technology exists to help in that. It's just a matter of the buyers of this different kind of softwares to actually know to demand that type of thing from their suppliers, but also the developers themselves. They can take proactive steps in improving the quality of their software by taking right kind of technology into use.
Heartbleed affected a lot of internet services and users and was given a prominent attention in the media for some time after the discovery. What was it with Heartbleed that got all this attention?
I think one of the big things in causing this kind of havoc around the media was the well thought logo, the branding of that particular bug. And one of the most important parts there was that we understood the severity of that Heartbleed. Heartbleed was really impacting a lot of different services, and it really was an important or dangerous bug out there, and it needed to be fixed. Many services needed to be fixed really fast. From the past, different kind of vulnerabilities that we've seen, we've realized that the information, when it comes public, there can be a lot of distractions of how and what should be done. And when we started to investigate it and we understood how severe this was, we wanted to make sure that the message gets out the right way and it really spreads as fast as possible. So we started to build up this heartbleed.com website with all the questions and answers that we could think of someone asking when they read something about that. So instead of just having a small announcement that there's a vulnerability in here, we raised awareness by creating a logo, by creating explicit information of what it really means for the general public.
As you mentioned in the talk, that your company paid attention to the media and tried to correct the articles that was a little bit wrong. Do you regard the media as a problem or as an asset in this case concerning Heartbleed?
Definitely an asset. It's really understandable that the very technical things are difficult to understand. So by not only means we didn't monitor media to pinpoint faulty things, but we followed media in order to correct and ensure that the message is right. So whenever you see a story about security vulnerability or a problem in some products that might cause privacy issues or something like that, there's always many levels of understanding for the case. And it was important for us to make sure that the message was correct. So that's why we observed the media and looked what kind of message that they are giving out, because the severity of this Heartbleed bug was so high that we needed and we wanted that all the people working with these kind of things, they have actually the right information to carry on their work. So media definitely is an asset in really severe cases, but you really need to craft your message right so that there's as little misconception possibilities as possible.
And you also talked about the race between exploiters and patchers. That concerning the Heartbleed bug, it took about 2 days from the discovery of the bug to the hackers started to try to take advantage of the bug to retrieve information. How can patchers and companies like Codenomicon win this race?
It all boils down to this development process of software. Now, this bug had been there in the code for 2 years. We have no way and know-how to know if someone had already been exploiting this vulnerability during those 2 years' time. Targeted attacks might have occurred, who knows, it doesn't leave a trace that much. When it becomes public knowledge, then it's the race goes on. That's when we really start to talk about 0 day, because there's a vulnerability and there's no patch for it, there's no correction for it. So that's really the time window when you start to battle and try to protect your systems from external attackers. The way to come from this 0 days, to get rid of the 0 days completely, would be to implement right type of testing processes into the development cycles straight away and build the security in rather than fix it afterwards. So I would say that the traditional perimetrical thinking of security is somewhat outdated. It's still effective when you use it the right way. But organizations really need to know what their vulnerabilities are before they start to implement perimetrical defenses.
Codenomicon is specialized in security testing of software, making tools for this. And today there's a lot of software vulnerability out there, whether to be fixed or exploited. If you look at software development, what do you believe is necessary to avoid these vulnerabilities?
If you would look at any of the secure development lifecycle descriptions that there are out there, there's so many different development process descriptions out there. But if you pick and choose any that says secure development lifecycle, you will have a piece in that process that says that this fuzzing technique should be used in the development process. That is one way, and that is a really good way, because every time a software is being developed, the developers take third-party components, they take their friends' code, they do all kinds of things to make their software come out fast as possible. And what is often neglected there is that if you introduce fuzzing, you will not only make the software more secure and robust, but you will also make it in general to have a better quality, which in turn turns into excellent customer experiences at the end.
Codenomicon developed a type of testing called fuzz testing, as you mentioned. Can you tell us about what fuzz testing is and what the advantages or disadvantages for this type of testing provides, and how your company uses this type of testing?
Well, fuzzing as a test methodology is not something really new. It's been out there for ages, and others could say that this is negative testing. Some say it's robustness testing. There's one really good example that a colleague of mine usually tells when he starts to talk about fuzzing as a test methodology. He tells the story that he was visiting his grandma, and grandma had a refrigerator that had two buttons. There's one red one and one green one. And as he was a clever boy, he wanted to know what happens when he pushes the green button. So he pushed the green button, the red one came out. Then he started to think that, okay, I pushed the red button. He pushed the red button and the green button came out. So then he started to think that, okay, now this is what happens when I push these buttons, but what happens when I push two buttons at the same time? And he pushed both buttons at the same time, and the whole house was shut down. It was short-circuiting the whole house. The electricity went down in the house. So that is what fuzzing is all about. You replace the refrigerator with software, and you replace the two fingers with our software that sends those kind of unexpected inputs to the software in order to make it crash or leak memory or something like that. Something unexpected that happens. So this fuzzing technology, there's many kinds of fuzzers, but I would say that ours is by far the most advanced ones. We've been developing this technology for close to 20 years now. And every time the technology has been compared to others, open source versions or commercial ones, it's always the fastest at finding the most amount of bugs from the software. And time is money for many developers.